In 2013, a medical file and 6 X-ray images were auctioned off for a staggering price at Julian's Auctions. These didn't belong to a politician or some dry historical figure, but to Marilyn Monroe. Those images confirmed a truth that Hollywood had buried for half a century. The most iconic beauty of all time was actually a masterpiece of the scalpel. But Marilyn was not alone. Behind the radiant smiles, the high sweeping cheekbones, and the captivating gazes of the Golden Age were the scent of antiseptic and hidden recovery rooms. The natural beauties we've always admired were in fact sculpted by the most talented surgeons' hands. Today, we will unpack the files of 21 stars who underwent aesthetic overhauls to become eternal icons. Before we flip open these secret X-ray files, please hit follow and give this a heart to join me in decoding the hidden corners of these legends. 1. Marilyn Monroe, a masterpiece from X-ray images. More than half a century after Marilyn Monroe's passing, the world remains obsessed with her beauty. But in 2013, a shocking truth was exposed when the medical records of surgeon Michael Gurdon were made public. Cold X-ray films from 1950 and 1962 confirmed something Hollywood had long tried to hide: that golden ratio face was not entirely a gift from Mother Nature. Few people know that before becoming the blonde bombshell who took the screen by storm. The young Norma Jean Mortensen had to undergo silent overhauls. According to physician records around 1950, Marilyn underwent a cartilage implant in her chin. The goal was to soften her naturally square jawline, creating the perfect heart-shaped face, which later became the gold standard of feminine beauty. Furthermore, the tip of her nose was meticulously refined, helping her face appear more delicate under the harsh studio lights. Marilyn made these changes right on the threshold of signing her fateful contract with Fox. She understood better than anyone the brutal rules of the Star Factory. To escape obscure supporting roles and cold rejections, she needed a face with 0 dead angles. This crafting was not just a matter of aesthetics. It was a survival strategy to transform the ordinary Norma Jean into the immortal Marilyn Monroe. She accepted the touch of the scalpel not out of vanity, but out of a desperate hunger to be recognized by the world. Even so, looking at her radiant smile, how many wonder how much physical pain was hidden beneath the rosy powder. Marilyn succeeded in creating a legend, but the price she paid was the eternal separation of her true self from a product meticulously sculpted for the public. If Marilyn Monroe was a puzzle of facial restructuring, then Hollywood's ultimate masculine icon Clark Gable held a different secret, right within his million-dollar smile. A secret that even his closest female co-stars found themselves both admiring and wary of every time the cameras began to roll. 2. Clark Gable, the fake smile of a king. Clark Gable, the dashing leading man with the flirtatious gaze in Gone with the Wind, was the very definition of masculinity and poise. However, behind that smile that melted the hearts of millions of women lay a truth few suspected. Gable had to use full dentures since the age of 32. According to archives from the MGM empire, a severe gum infection in 1933 forced doctors to extract all of his natural teeth. In the world of Golden Age Hollywood, for a leading man at the peak of his career to lose his teeth was a disaster that could terminate any contract. The studio immediately turned this incident into a top-secret reconstruction campaign. They fitted him with the most perfect porcelain set of the time, helping Gable's face appear fuller and more commanding. However, on-screen perfection came with laughable yet tearful situations behind the scenes. The removable dentures occasionally caused unpleasant breath, a secret that female co-stars like Vivien Leigh skillfully kept from the media, even if they sometimes had to hold their breath during passionate kissing scenes. Gable accepted that inconvenience, professionally viewing the dentures as a piece of armor to step into his roles. The uncrowned king proved that sometimes charisma doesn't lie in what is most natural, but in how a star commands even their flaws to create a flawless legend on the silver screen. If Clark Gable had to rely on artificial porcelain to protect a king's smile, then for the next star the change was not just in the teeth, but a total overhaul of identity. Hollywood didn't just want her to be more beautiful, they wanted her to become an entirely different person. To achieve that, this woman had to endure a painful journey to erase the very blood flowing in her veins. Rita Hayworth. 3. Rita Hayworth, the painful ethnic cleansing. Before becoming the ultimate glamour icon of the 1940s, Rita Hayworth did not possess vibrant red hair or a sophisticated high forehead. She was Margarita Carmen Cancino, a dancer with jet black hair, slightly darker skin, and the low hairline characteristic of her Spanish heritage. In the eyes of the Columbia Pictures moguls, this Latin beauty was a barrier preventing her from reaching top-tier leading roles. They wanted her to be completely Americanized. To perform this change of identity, Rita had to undergo a process she later called torture for art. For over a year, she endured weekly electrolysis treatments. Each hair follicle on her forehead was destroyed by electric current to raise her hairline by more than 2 centimeters, making her face appear broader and brighter, according to Anglo-Saxon beauty standards. This procedure was performed before effective anesthetics were available, leaving her skin frequently swollen and burned. Furthermore, her legendary black hair was dyed a flaming red, the color that would later define her name. Rita Hayworth was essentially erased of her origins to become a perfect entertainment product for the American audience. Her sacrifice was rewarded with brilliant glory, but it also left a void of identity. Every man I knew went to bed with Gilda but woke up with me. She once bitterly shared, hinting at the unbridgeable gap between her real self and the image meticulously sculpted by the hands of makeup artists. The transformation of Rita Hayworth was an ethnic overhaul, but for the bad boy, James Dean, the change lay in a detail so small that no one suspected it. A scornful smirk that became the symbol of rebellion actually hid a surprising, removable secret. 4. James Dean, the bad boy and the secret behind the smirk. James Dean remains the eternal icon of rebellion, the youth with dreamy eyes and a scornful smirk that captivated an entire generation. But behind that nonchalant facade, the man often called the masculine Norma Jean carried a private insecurity. Few know that the trademark smile from Rebel Without a Cause was actually the product of removable dentistry. According to the memoirs of his close friend, David Niven, James Dean lost his 2 front teeth in an accident during his youth. Some say he fell while performing acrobatics on his farm in Indiana, while others claim it was the result of a fierce athletic match. To step into the Hollywood spotlight, Dean had to wear a bridge to fill that gap. The fascinating part is that instead of hiding it as a source of shame, James Dean turned it into a tool for his eccentric personality. He frequently shocked colleagues and friends by suddenly popping out his false teeth mid-conversation, or placing them in a stranger's glass as a macabre prank. That famous smirk was actually how Dean adjusted his lip muscles to keep the bridge from shifting accidentally, creating a persona that was both lazy and defiant, leaving the world swooning. James Dean's rebellion lay in joking with his own flaws, but for the next queen of drama, beauty was a war of survival she refused to lose. She was willing to trade the comfort of her teeth for a face with a bone structure as sharp as a razor. Joan Crawford. 5. Joan Crawford, the painful sacrifice for hollow cheeks. In the world of cinema, few possessed a bone structure as iconic and sharp as this powerhouse of the MGM empire. To achieve those dramatic scenes with high sweeping cheekbones and deep haunting eyes, she performed a procedure that remains spine-chilling to hear of today: the buckle. According to behind-the-scenes makeup artists, the actress proactively requested the removal of her back molars so that her cheeks would hollow out naturally under the studio lights. This sacrifice created a beauty that was both commanding and haggard, allowing her to perfectly embody strong women rising above adversity. But the price for this sculpted look was chronic pain and an incredibly strict diet to maintain the hollowness of her face. Her obsession with beauty went to extremes in her daily habits. Every morning she would plunge her face into ice-cold water to tighten the skin, while simultaneously pulling her hair back with tight ties hidden under wigs to maximize the facelift effect. She stands as a vivid testament to a star who transformed herself into a living piece of art, regardless of the pain or the ruthless laws of time. While Joan Crawford's efforts lay in enduring pain to keep her sharp features, the next gentleman chose a much more discreet and sophisticated approach. Dubbed the most elegant man of the 20th century, his timeless poise was actually maintained at a secret clinic in the Alps. 6. Cary Grant, the ageless gentleman from Switzerland. The debonair look and poised demeanor of this man always made younger actors envious. Even as he passed the age of 60, his face seemed not to have a single wrinkle. However, the truth about this reverse aging only began to emerge through post-career documents after his death. As early as the 1950s, a time when plastic surgery for men was a taboo, he quietly underwent his first facelift to protect his image. To maintain his innate masculinity without leaving a trace, this process was carried out with absolute secrecy. He frequently took long flights to a secluded private clinic in Switzerland, under aliases to undergo minor eye procedures and neck lifts. Afterward, he would spend his entire recovery time in Europe until all swelling subsided, only returning to California with a radiant appearance as if the traces of time never existed. The technique was so sophisticated that even the sharpest Hollywood camera lenses of the era could not detect a single scar. He masterfully maintained the image of the perfect gentleman until the final days of his career, proving that in the world of dreams, truth is sometimes just a choice. Cary Grant's secrecy helped him hold on to his title as a refined gentleman, but Hollywood also had a leading lady whose beauty was considered a world wonder. Yet behind those enchanting violet eyes and rare natural double eyelashes, even this powerful woman had to rely on dental refinements to turn perfection into the absolute Elizabeth Taylor. 7. Elizabeth Taylor, refining perfection. The Queen of Diamonds always appeared with a look that made onlookers catch their breath. Despite being blessed with unique violet eyes and a rare genetic mutation of double eyelashes, Elizabeth Taylor was not exempt from the rigorous aesthetic demands of the studios. According to MGM archives from the time she was a teenager, Liz Taylor was cared for by top dental experts to ensure her smile would always be a sharp weapon on screen. Doctors performed periodic and meticulous orthodontic work to realign slightly crooked teeth, creating a perfectly even jawline that reflected light flawlessly under the Technicolor lens. Furthermore, post-career records indicate she underwent minor eye procedures to reduce puffiness and slightly lift the outer corners, making her already deep gaze appear even more commanding. For Liz Taylor, surgery was not about changing who she was, but about sculpting the most radiant version of herself, making her an icon that everyone craved, but no one could touch. While Liz Taylor used the scalpel to sharpen her elegance, the next man used it to protect his rugged charm. He was the rebel who completely revolutionized Hollywood acting, but even this giant had a weakness on his face after fierce physical encounters. 8. Marlon Brando, the nose of a giant. Marlon Brando entered cinema with an original, raw, and unmistakable power. However, the face of the anti-hero in A Streetcar Named Desire underwent significant transformations. After years of passion for boxing in his youth and several unfortunate collisions on film sets, Brando's nose had become slightly deviated, losing the balance required for a leading man. According to later biographical documents, Brando underwent a rhinoplasty, to narrow the nostrils and realign his broken bridge. Notably, he did not choose a picture-perfect nose like a dandy. He requested the doctor keep a rugged, healthy look that would harmonize better under the stage lights. This sophisticated intervention helped his face become magnetic, an intense masculine attraction delicate enough for the lens yet gritty enough to reveal a rebellious soul. That nose accompanied him in creating immortal icons like Vito Corleone, proving that sometimes surgery is the way to preserve one's most distinct essence. In stark contrast to Brando's ruggedness, the next figure is the very definition of purity and natural grace. However, you might be surprised to learn that even the angelic smile that stirred all of Paris in Sabrina required a few rearrangements from professional dentists. 9. Audrey Hepburn, the refined smile. Audrey Hepburn is forever celebrated as the icon of natural ethereal beauty that required no help from a scalpel. However, the truth is that even Audrey had to meet the harsh aesthetic standards of 1950s Hollywood. Early in her career, while preparing for her breakout role in Roman Holiday, Paramount Pictures noticed that her teeth, while charming, were slightly crooked and not perfectly level, a detail that could be distracting in close-up shots. To rectify this, the studio arranged an expedited course of cosmetic dentistry. Doctors performed light contouring and applied porcelain to certain spots to create a radiant, perfectly even smile, while still retaining her inherent elegance. This was one of the few interventions on Audrey's face, but it played a pivotal role in creating the image of a perfect princess. The adjustment was so subtle that the public remained largely unaware, helping Audrey maintain her pure beauty title for decades, even though she too had spent hours in a dentist's chair to achieve her most splendid appearance. Audrey Hepburn's dental refinement was merely the polishing of a raw gem, but for the next leading man, it was a total overhaul to erase the traces of a difficult past. To possess a smile that could dominate every frame, this man stepped into surgery with a determination to change his destiny. 10. Burt Lancaster, the killer smile. Stepping into the world of cinema not from prestigious acting schools but from the glowing lights of the circus, this man possessed the brawny physique of an acrobat, yet his face lacked the necessary sophistication of an A-list star. During his years struggling in the circus and the military, his teeth had been severely damaged, crooked and discolored, a fatal barrier to catching the eyes of Hollywood directors at the time. Around 1946, while preparing for his breakthrough role in the film The Killers, a revolution in cosmetic dentistry was undertaken. According to studio records, he received veneers and a full-arch bridge, an incredibly expensive and pioneering technique for the era. Dentists designed a brilliant white set of teeth with the perfect length and shape to highlight his powerful wide mouth, creating a stunning contrast with his rugged exterior. This transformation was so miraculous that it changed not only his appearance, but his entire aura. With his new smile, Lancaster radiated an overwhelming confidence part, rogue part, true aristocrat. That smile became so famous it was dubbed the killer smile, becoming his trademark weapon as he conquered audiences through a series of classics. This is a prime example of Hollywood's willingness to invest massive sums to turn a circus act into an undying masculine icon. Burt Lancaster's confidence came from a willingness to change to shine, whereas the next gentleman ran into trouble with a small but annoying detail on an otherwise near-perfect face. A part that wouldn't behave every time the camera rolled from a profile angle forced him to turn to the scalpel to achieve the most standard look. 11. Pinning the ears for a golden profile. Gary Cooper. Long regarded as the benchmark of masculine beauty, stoic, poised, and dignified in the epic sagas of the Old West, few realized that in the early years of his career, this man was scrutinized intensely by studios for a minor flaw. His ears protruded slightly and did not sit flush against his head. which often created unnecessary shadows under concentrated studio lights. This detracted from the stern, rugged aura that directors demanded of a leading man. To resolve this, in the late 1920s, an ear-pinning surgery otoplasty was secretly performed. This was one of the first recorded aesthetic procedures for men in Hollywood. Surgeons made skillful incisions behind the ears to reshape the cartilage, allowing them to sit against the scalp more naturally. Though the surgery was minor, its aesthetic impact was immense, rendering his face more refined and standard from every angle. Following the adjustment, he possessed a golden ratio profile, making his portrayals of aristocrats and righteous heroes absolutely convincing. The intervention was so sophisticated that the public at the time never harbored a single doubt. They believed his noble beauty was purely a result of genetics. This silent transformation proved that in the world of cinema, even a change of a few millimeters can be the key that unlocks the door to on-screen immortality. Gary Cooper's beauty was honed through voluntary sacrifice for his career, but for the next girl, beauty was a sentence imposed by the iron fist of the studio. Behind the radiance of a child prodigy were physical agony and a brutal control over every millimeter of her body, turning her life into a brilliant tragedy under the colored lights. 12. The Tragedy of the Manufactured Child, Judy Garland. Perhaps the darkest and most heartbreaking page in Hollywood history is the story of the star of The Wizard of Oz. From the moment she signed with MGM at just 14 years old, this young girl no longer owned her own body. The studio viewed her as a piece of merchandise that needed to be edited to reach the ideal perfection of a girl next door. Because her face still held the roundness of childhood and her teeth were not perfectly straight, the studio moguls decided to intervene violently. Every time she stood before a camera, she was forced to wear temporary dental caps to create an even smile, a device that not only caused pain but directly interfered with her speech. Furthermore, the studio inserted rubber discs into her nose to reshape it into a more delicate silhouette. These non-surgical surgeries occurred constantly, leaving her with a lifelong feeling that she was flawed and never beautiful enough. This physical control was coupled with prescriptions for weight loss pills and amphetamines to keep her thin and energized on set. The forced aesthetic interventions and the grueling lifestyle from her youth planted the seeds for severe psychological crises and an addiction that haunted her for life. This is a devastating testament to how Golden Age Hollywood was willing to torment the body and soul of its child stars, just to trade for a few shimmering hours on the silver screen, turning beauty into an unbearable burden for a young soul. The brutal control Judy Garland endured was a tragedy of a stolen childhood, but for the next woman, plastic surgery was a sharp tool she used to personally carve out the title of the most beautiful woman in the world. To possess an ethereal face and a noble high forehead, she chose to enter painful treatments, transforming herself into a masterpiece of elegance. 13. The Power of the Forehead and Ethereal Beauty, Ava Gardner. Dubbed the world's most beautiful animal, any man would catch his breath when facing her radiant and somewhat wild beauty. Yet to reach the perfection that made all of Hollywood tip its hat, she had to make a significant change to her face that few noticed. Before becoming the sultry icon of MGM, she possessed a relatively low forehead with uneven baby hairs that made her face appear somewhat dark and lacked the necessary airiness of a grand star. Similar to Rita Hayworth, this woman had to undergo the agonizing process of electrolysis to raise her hairline. Each hair follicle on the forehead was destroyed by an electric current to create a wide, flat, and more regal forehead. In the 1940s, this procedure was a literal physical torture, as there were no effective anesthetics, leaving red, swollen marks that lasted for weeks. However, the sacrifice yielded magnificent results. Her face became luminous, accentuating her deep eyes and sharp cheekbones. Furthermore, archival records show she underwent minor refinements to her nostrils to make her face appear more slender under close-up lenses. The combination of natural-born beauty and sophisticated aesthetic interventions turned her into one of the most zero-dead-angle faces in film history. She accepted the pain as an inevitable part of her profession, an investment to ensure that every second she appeared on the silver screen was a moment of immortality. Ava Gardner's beauty was a honing toward refinement, whereas with the next leading man, a tiny detail on the face became the trademark weapon for his entire career. Unsatisfied with what nature provided, he sought to deepen a specific mark on his face to create a masculine, decisive image that no one could ever mistake. 14. The career-defining dimple, Kirk Douglas. In the world of dashing leading men, this actor stood out with a rugged exterior, specifically his masculine cleft chin, which became his unique trademark. While that chin was a natural feature, persistent rumors from Hollywood insiders suggest that he underwent surgery to deepen the indentation. The goal was to create a more powerful visual effect, accentuating his toughness and resolve in every frame, especially in great epic roles like Spartacus. This surgery did not alter his entire facial structure, but it brought an irresistible magnetic pull. The deep cleft made his face appear more angular, reflecting light exceptionally well during close-up shots and creating a leadership persona that was both commanding and alluring. This was a brilliant image-building strategy, turning an innate trait into a manufactured icon so dazzling that the public believed it was a perfect gift from the heavens. The meticulous maintenance and enhancement of this feature showed his dedication to his public image. He understood that in Hollywood, sometimes a tiny detail emphasized correctly carries more weight than 1,000 lines of dialogue. That cleft chin was not only tied to his legendary success, but became an aesthetic legacy passed down to the next generation, proving that even masculinity can be honed to be sharper than ever. Kirk Douglas's refinement was about building a leading man persona, but for the king of Western's plastic surgery was an uncompromising battle to push back the traces of old age. To maintain the image of a weathered yet vigorous hero, he sought out secret clinics for silent, fought overhauls. 15. The Cowboy's Battle Against Time, John Wayne. As an eternal icon of American resilience and strength, this man spent his life building the persona of a Western hero who never fell. However, as he entered his 50s, wrinkles and sagging skin around the eyes began to threaten his career. To maintain the vital energy required for heavy action roles, he underwent facelifts and eyelid surgeries, blepharoplasty, in the 1960s. The recovery of a masculine icon was always guarded like a state secret. To avoid the scrutiny of the press, he often staged hunting or fishing trips lasting weeks in remote areas. In reality, that was his time to rest while the swelling and surgical scars faded. He did not want the public to see a hero who relied on a scalpel. He wanted them to believe his ruggedness was invariant against the ravages of time. The results of these maintenance sessions were impressive. His face became firmer, and his eyes regained their innate sharpness, helping him continue to dominate the box office in top-tier films during the sunset of his career. This effort was not merely out of personal vanity, but a responsibility toward the eternal image he had painstakingly built. That hero chose to fight aging with the same fierce spirit he used against enemies on screen, turning plastic surgery into a tool to protect his own legend. While John Wayne underwent surgery to hold on to the past, the next talented singer used the scalpel to forge a new future, completely shedding his immigrant look to penetrate the high society of American entertainment. A bold transformation right at the start of his career helped turn him from an ordinary Italian boy into an enchanting, debonair gentleman. 16. The Nose and the Journey of Identity Transformation, Dean Martin. Before becoming a member of the legendary Rat Pack and captivating millions with his baritone voice, the young Dino Crocetti possessed an appearance typical of an Italian immigrant, featuring a rather large and wide nose. At the time, Hollywood still harbored underlying ethnic prejudices, and a face that was too Italian could have trapped him in minor supporting roles or obscure criminal characters. Recognizing this, he underwent a rhinoplasty to narrow the nostrils and reshape the bridge to be more refined. This surgery was not just an aesthetic change, but a strategic move to Americanize his image. With a new balanced and sophisticated face, he easily stepped into the persona of a stylish, suave gentleman, always appearing with a martini in hand and absolute confidence. The transformation was so successful that the public quickly forgot the origins of Dino Crocetti to welcome a charming Dean Martin who could handle any role from comedy to romance. The new nose helped his face become more cinematic and harmonious under every studio light, setting the stage for a brilliant career spanning decades. This is clear evidence that sometimes surgery is not just about changing looks, but how an artist redefines their standing in the hearts of a global audience. Dean Martin's success in redefining his identity proved the power of plastic surgery, but for America's sweetheart, early beauty technology was a cruel sentence. To cling to her youth in an industry that worshipped the young, she entered an experiment where the price paid was not just her beauty, but the very ability to express an artist's emotions. 17. Mary Pickford, The Tragedy of a Pioneer. Known as the most powerful woman in Hollywood, at the time she was not only an actress but also the co-founder of United Artists. With her golden curls and innocent face, she dominated the silent film era, playing youthful, ingenue roles. However, as time began to leave its mark and the advent of talkies demanded a fresher look, she fell into a desperate fear of being forgotten. In a bid to maintain her status, she turned to one of the first facelifts in Hollywood history. In the 1930s, facelift techniques were extremely primitive and fraught with risk. Her surgery did not go as planned. Doctors over-tightened the skin, causing severe damage to her facial muscle groups. As a result, she lost the ability to smile naturally or perform complex expressions, the very soul of the acting craft. The face of the woman who once made the world weep now appeared dull, lifeless, and possessed a bizarre, frozen look. This tragedy marked the end of her illustrious on-screen career. Unable to continue taking roles that required psychological depth, she gradually withdrew into the shadows of solitude at her Pickford estate. Her story remains a poignant warning to the entire entertainment industry about the dangers of unverified aesthetic procedures. She sacrificed everything for a wrinkle-free face, only to lose an actor's most precious asset, the ability to connect with an audience through the most authentic of human emotions. Mary Pickford's pain is a reminder of the brutality of the scalpel when lacking refinement, but for the next blonde legend, perfection came not from invasive surgery, but from innovative and equally extreme beauty inventions. She refused to let fate or age dictate her looks, instead inventing non-surgical facelift techniques to maintain her mysterious, sharp appearance until her very last breath. 18. Non-surgical surgery and the Croydon secret, Marlene Dietrich. Famous for her cold, androgynous style and impossibly high cheekbones, this woman remains one of the most enduring style icons in cinematic history. Instead of conventional plastic surgery, she used a technique called the Croydon facelift to deceive the public eye. This method involved braiding tiny sections of hair very tightly at the temples, then pulling them back to create maximum tension for the face and eye area, hiding it all under magnificent wigs. To further sharpen her facial silhouette, she was also suspected of performing the buckle, similar to Joan Crawford, by having her back molars removed. This caused her cheeks to hollow out further, creating a bone structure that looked like a sculpture under studio lights. Beyond that, she used ultra-thin surgical tape to pull the skin of her neck taut skillfully, hiding it behind her ears or beneath elaborate jewelry. Every time she appeared, she was like a meticulously assembled masterpiece, where every millimeter of flesh was under strict control. Her extreme devotion to beauty cost her chronic headaches from the hair being pulled too tight and significant discomfort while eating. However, for this woman, beauty was a religion, and she was her own high priestess. She would rather endure physical agony than let the audience see a single wrinkle of aging. Until her final days living as a recluse in Paris, she kept these secrets guarded, protecting the image of an immortal goddess whose beauty was never conquered by time or nature. Marlene Dietrich's creativity allowed her to master the public gaze through manual techniques, but for the next most beautiful woman in the world, beauty was both a burden and a haunting experiment with the most advanced beauty technologies. Moving beyond mere makeup tricks, she donned into aesthetic treatments ahead of her time, turning her life into a long journey for absolute perfection between intellect and beauty. 19. The obsession with perfection and beauty tech, Hedy Lamarr. Possessing a superhuman intellect and a face dubbed the standard of all standards, she was not just a movie star but a great inventor. However, the public's immense expectation of her breathtaking beauty inadvertently pushed her into a never-ending race against time. When the first signs of aging appeared, instead of accepting the natural order, she became one of the first to experiment with early facelifts and primitive fillers as early as the 1960s. The obsession with maintaining her status as the most beautiful woman led her to undergo a series of surgeries, from nose jobs and chin alterations to continuous facelifts. Sadly, at that time, plastic surgery knowledge was not advanced enough to meet her desires. Excessive interventions gradually altered her naturally delicate features, making her face appear rigid and sometimes distorted under the media's lens. She became increasingly reclusive, shunning the spotlight because she did not want the world to see the version of herself that the scalpel had ruined. In her final years, she lived in solitude, communicating with the world only via telephone to protect everyone's memory of the most radiant Hedy Lamarr. Her story is a somber reflection on the price of beauty, a woman with an intellectual stature great enough to change the history of technology, yet trapped in the glass cage of her own appearance. She spent her life sculpting perfection, only to realize in the end that the artificial can never bring peace to a soul that yearns to be understood rather than just stared at. Hedy Lamarr's journey for perfection is a somber note of solitude behind the glamour, where even genius could not save a heart obsessed with its exterior. But before fillers or skin-tightening tech dominated Hollywood history, witnessed destiny-changing transformations achieved through just a simple minor surgery on the face. 20. The Ears and a Miraculous Turn of Fate, Rudolph Valentino. Before the name Rudolph Valentino became a symbol for the passionate romance of the 1920s, this young Italian man struggled against the cold rejection of the studios. With a face carrying bold Mediterranean masculinity but possessing quite prominent protruding ears, he was frequently rejected by directors for leading roles. They felt those ears made him look more like a clown or a trivial villain than a lover who could make women across the globe swoon. Determined to change his destiny, Valentino sought out ear-pinning surgery, otoplasty, an extremely rare and progressive procedure at the time. Surgeons trimmed the cartilage and pinned the ears close to his head, creating a balanced, refined, and captivating face from every angle. The results exceeded expectations. The surgery changed not only his look, but his entire aura. With his new ears, Valentino possessed a divine profile, helping him easily catch the eye of filmmakers for legendary roles in The Shake or Blood and Sand. This change transformed him into the silver screen's first Latin lover, creating a craze unprecedented in Hollywood history. However, Valentino always kept this secret to protect his image as a perfect, flawless god of love. His short life. is the clearest evidence that sometimes just a change of a few millimeters on the body is enough to shift an entire destiny, turning an obscure dancer into an immortal legend whose death sent thousands of women into a state of hysteria. Valentino's rise marked the beginning of an era where beauty was treated as a sharp business tool, and the final figure on our list is the most polished product of the star-making machine from the major studios. She was more than just an actress. She was a meticulous sculpting project where every line on her face was calculated to achieve absolute brilliance under the colored lights. 21. The precision of the Star Factory, Lana Turner. Dubbed the Sweater Girl, her beauty was not a mere coincidence of nature but the result of extremely meticulous grooming by experts at MGM. From the moment she was discovered at an ice cream parlor as a teenager, the studio saw immense potential in her, but they also realized her face needed refining to become a true treasure. She underwent a series of cosmetic dental adjustments to achieve a radiant, perfectly even smile that reflected light flawlessly in black and white films. The refinements didn't stop there. Post-career documents revealed she had a subtle rhinoplasty to make the bridge of her nose straighter and more slender, helping her face achieve absolute harmony in close-ups. The studio controlled every minute detail from reshaping her eyebrows to minor surgical interventions to keep her skin constantly taut and glowing. She became the embodiment of glamour, a magnificent artificial beauty that was so enchanting the public could not look away. This meticulous attention turned her into one of the most valuable stars in history, but it also turned her life into an endless exhibition. She always had to appear in her most perfect form, even in everyday moments, because the studio had built an image so high that it allowed for no margin of error. Her story concludes our list as a symbol of talented craftsmanship, where Hollywood did not just tell stories on film, but personally created super entities to fulfill the dreams of humanity. 21 icons, 21 stories of the trade-offs behind the glamour. From painful dental adjustments to major surgeries that reconstructed identities, we see that the beauty of the Golden Age was not just a gift of genetics, but the result of willpower pain and the hands of gifted surgeons. Hollywood wove immortal dreams through silent interventions on the very flesh of its stars. Perhaps in understanding these hidden corners, our admiration for them does not diminish. Instead, it is replaced by a deeper empathy for the price of greatness. Those faces have aged, those films have passed, but the drive to become perfect remains an inseparable part of human instinct. Which star's transformation shocked you the most? Don't forget to hit the heart button and comment your thoughts below. If you want to discover more earth-shattering secrets about the private lives of Hollywood legends, hit follow now so you don't miss the next episodes. Thank you for watching.